Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and again, welcome to our Friday California Nevada chat. My name is Len Dumas, Executive Director for the Northern California PGA, and we have a lot to talk about today, as we do. Certainly, we're all aware of what's happening throughout our states, California and Nevada, and the country, with the surges that are going on. So at this point, we certainly express continued caution. Continue to observe the protocols that are in place, of course, statewide, nationally, statewide, county, and in some cases down to the city level, as well as we've hit our full tilt almost of activities, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes. Our speakers today, we have an amazing lineup. Tyler Dennis. Tyler, thank you, for Senior Vice President, Chief of Operations for the PGA Tour. Kenny Sims, MBA, PGA. Kenny's with us, and Kenny's the Vice President of Golf Operations for the Tampa Sports Authority. And of course, Craig Kessler, the Director of Government Affairs for the Southern California Golf Association, and Kevin Fitzgerald, Assistant Director of Government Affairs for the Southern California Golf Association. So, and you know, we do this because this is really important, and we couldn't do it without each other, which is what we talk about so much these days. So certainly Tom and our colleagues in the Southern California PGA, President Tony Latendre, PGA Executive Director and CEO Tom Addis, Assistant Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer Nikki Gatch, and our communications team, Bryce Seaver, Tyler Miller, and Caitlin Doyle here in Northern California. So as we get things started, I'd like to turn it to our Northern California PGA Section President, Dee Moriarty.
Thanks, Len. Just want to take the opportunity once again to say hello from San Francisco. I hope everybody's doing well and staying safe. This is the time for us to get tough and do the things we need to do to try and bend the curve on this thing that we're going through. So thank you, Craig, for always being with us. Tyler and Kenny, great to have you. And thanks, Tom and Len, for continuing these chats. So I will throw it back to Len.
Okay, thank you, Dee. And I'd like to toss it to Mr. Tom Addis. Tom?
Yeah, thanks, Len, and thanks, Dee. Tony Latendre, the Southern California PGA President, is with us and would like for Tony to say a few words.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to just say hello, and I hope everybody's had a great week and looking forward to hearing what everybody has to say this morning. So without further ado, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to say hello and wish everybody well.
Thanks, Tony, and welcome to Tyler and Kenny and Craig and Kevin once again. And as we move along, even with what's happening out there in the world, according to COVID and the like, and the pandemic we're facing and continue to face, and the challenges that's brought, golf was prominently mentioned this morning through the Southern California News Group, which the Orange County Register is their largest publication, among others. And then in my area, in the Inland Empire, the Press Enterprise. And the headline was, "Coaches believe some fall sports are safe." And considering that tennis and golf are the least risky of any sport out there, and prime ability to use distancing and the like with golf and tennis specifically. So I think that's good that we're mentioned in that regard, and continues to be positive and gives us a ray of light in that regard, that hopefully we can sustain this throughout this crisis. So thanks to the Southern California News Group for publishing that, and thanks to the CIF for their feelings in that regard. So we've got a great team on this morning, and appreciate that. And again, thanks to Caitlin and Bryce and Tyler and the group for their participation. Caitlin will be monitoring the questions this morning. And with that, Len, thank you.
Thanks, Tom. And you know, that really is, we need good news, and that is certainly good news as we read some other news as of yesterday, that we have over 30 of our 58 counties here in California that have now made their way to the watch list. is under the state's vision and state's guidelines. And as we know, most indoor activities, most indoor social activities, for the most part, have been rolled back. And Nevada last week rolled back to phase one. So our health officials continue to emphasize and discourage large social gathering and face coverings, strongly suggested in public, and as we have all experienced in our communities, mandatory in many, many businesses. You know, as Tom mentioned, that is good news. And last week he said, let's talk about our activities, because they're in pretty much full swing right now, meaning we have section events underway. We have our junior tours underway. Facilities have started PGA Junior League, though with a modified schedule this year, certainly. But the kids are playing again in a number of ways, which is great. And so a shout out to all of our operators and all of our staff members for the diligence in adhering to the protocols, particularly as they change so much on a daily basis. And we keep getting good news. And we're headed to some big events, as just talking to Tyler a moment ago before we came on. A week after next week, we go to the Barracuda here in Truckee at Old Greenwood, and immediately following that, right to the PGA Championship at Harding Park. And as Craig mentioned this morning, the California State Amateur will be at Torrey Pines the same week of the Barracuda. So what's really great there is we've got a couple of public courses that are hosting the majors. And this morning, the city of San Francisco has agreed to Harding Park hosting a tour event over the next 5 to 8 years. So even though we've got some surges going on, we have some spikes going on, we are really well positioned as we move forward. So again, thank you everyone for doing everything that you do to keep us safe and playing healthy. So I'd like to start this morning by introducing Tyler Dennis, Senior Vice President and Chief of Operations for the PGA Tour. And Tyler is at the Memorial. Tyler, thanks for joining us. Tyler serves as the Senior Vice President and Chief of Operations at the Tour, is responsible for the day-to-day operation of all tournaments. In this role, he oversees the rules, competitions, member services, and tournament operations, ShotLink, tournament business affairs, and agronomy. Tyler started at the Tour as a rules official on web.com and later on the Tour. And beginning in 2007, he transitioned to oversight of the competitions area, ShotLink, and operations of many of the Tour functions which he manages on site. He also serves as the technical director for the International Golf Federation, which oversees golf in the Olympics. Tyler attended Stanford University as an undergrad, where he received his BS in mechanical engineering, and then attended the University of Cambridge, where he received his master's in business administration. A native of Salt Lake City, Tyler lives with his family in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. So Tyler, thank you for being with us, taking your time from the event this morning. And I will say that we're particularly grateful for the collaboration of our industry, particularly such as the Back to Golf guidelines. And Seth Waugh, more than once, Tyler complimented the relationship with Commissioner Monahan, and yourself, of course, for working out the schedule, for finding ways in what's going on that make things happen. And that's what's great. So the team spirit is there. Tyler, we can't thank you enough for being with us this morning.
Yeah, thanks, Len. It's great to be with everyone, and that was quite the intro. I don't even know if half of that was true, but I I appreciate it. As you heard, I did live in Northern California for a number of years, and I'm from a neighboring state of Utah originally, so I have a lot of friends in the sections there. And as Lynn said, just to reiterate, the PGA Tour has such a great relationship with all of the sections where we go over the years. We've made a lot of great friends, but we really couldn't do it without PGA members and the help of the sections, from qualifying to the things we do at each event. And
Okay, looks like, Tyler, it seems as though we've lost audio for the moment. Let's see what we can do here. Bryce, shall we ask Tyler to call in?
Yeah, we might want to try that. I'm not sure what the issue is here.
Okay. Tyler, do you have the call-in number? Okay.
Let's see, Lynn, or can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you now, Tyler. Thank you.
Okay. I turned off the video. I'm really sorry about that. I'm not sure what the issue is.
There we go.
But I was just saying the collaboration between all the golf orgs has been incredible. And it did, as you said, allow us to create a schedule. And here we are out here today. It's our 6th week on tour. And I'd love to tell you guys a little bit about some of the behind the scenes stuff and all of what's gone into that. Assuming you can hear me.
Yes, Tyler, we can, and that would be wonderful. Certainly, it's very, very complex, and I'm sure there were some very difficult decisions to be made, but we'd love to, if you would draw us the roadmap for how we got from point A to the Colonial and moving forward, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And apologies for the connection issue. So it's been an interesting process, as I said, when almost from the day we stopped play at the Players Championship, we spent the next 13 weeks trying to figure out how to come back to golf. And we really just set a pretty simple goal that we were going to achieve what we wanted to have the best, the gold standard, if you will, of health and safety plans across professional sports. And as everybody on the call knows, golf is extremely well suited to this new world we're living in. It's a great outdoor game, and there's a lot of great features about it. But we set a pretty high bar, and we also wanted to make sure that we weren't taking anything away from the communities that we play in, in terms of testing and medical resources and whatnot. And then, of course, we wanted to make sure we could display the competition in a way that was respectful to the integrity of it and all the things that we have on the PGA Tour. So it's gone well. We built out a plan. We called it our Return to Golf events, and basically it's a comprehensive plan where we don't have any spectators on site, as you know, and our players and caddies and, kind of key constituents with staff and whatnot are subject to a series of protocols that ultimately comprise our health and safety plan, daily screening. We have an at-home prior to leaving for a tournament test for COVID-19 you have to do. And then again, on site, we have a testing regime that's in place. And to do that last piece was a bit of a challenge. We actually ended up partnering with a health system in the Midwest that has mobile laboratories. And it's been really successful. We've been able to achieve our testing plan by taking it with us to each place we're going to. And we have, at this point, done over 6,000 tests here over the last 6 weeks across the 2 tours. We've had very few positives. I think we've, had about a total of a little over 20 players and caddies test positive at home or when they arrived on site prior to being allowed access to the golf course. And it's basically worked. We've been able to protect the sort of population of people that is the PGA Tour and keep things safe and healthy. Those almost all those players have been asymptomatic individuals, meaning they didn't even know they had it. It's coming together on site. It's been a different look and feel. The golf part's the same, but without the spectators out here, it's a different look. And a lot of behind the scenes things. We're screening everyone who enters the venue with temperature screens and questionnaire. We had to reinvent the sort of food service part of it, and a lot of things like that. And I will say that, like a knock on wood, so to speak, it's gone really well. Our players have really embraced it. And you know, we're really proud to get golf back on TV. We think that it's a great sport to show to the world as a way to reopen things, you know, and you all know that, running golf courses in your states and cities, and hopefully we're doing our part to help you in that. You know, where it goes from here is something we've been working on hard. You may have seen the tournament I'm at, the Memorial Tournament presented by Nationwide, has a, we had originally intended to have spectators on site, work closely with the governor of Ohio and all the city and county officials here. And we, given kind of the changing nature every day that we all are acutely aware of, you know, we read and watch the news, we decided to pull back from that, again, to that first point I made about wanting to make sure this was the gold standard and being very conservative about it. And we're hoping to, you know, bring things back. We want to bring back the Pro-Am. That's a key part of our business and something that's special to professional sports. Certainly golf makes it different. And we want to bring back fans and hospitality clients. And we're just going about that in a measured way. We're really looking at it on a state by state basis, city by city basis, understanding all the right regulations and guidelines. And like I say, we're just not going to do it if we can't do it safely. We think we've got a great thing going. The interaction and the reception that the PGA Tour's had on television across our digital platforms the last 6 weeks has been, frankly, incredible. You know, we're one of the only sports playing, and we're proud to do that. And we're gonna get back to normal here with this eventually, and we're just gonna do it in the right way.
Tyler, thank you. You know, we're certainly excited as we got closer and closer to Colonial, and during the lead up to that, you know, the first one for the season, I could imagine there were some what ifs that were considered rather, and then some that couldn't have been considered. But so talk a little about that roll up to Colonial and being the first out of the box and so on and so forth, because it seemed to just go absolutely perfectly from our end.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was definitely a lot of nervous, you know, 24-hour days for all of us planning it, and it has gone well. You know, we've had to evolve. A lot of it has related, and you may have seen some of the media reporting over recent weeks, really to do with our testing program and how to treat individuals that you know, test positive, whether they're asymptomatic individuals or perhaps they have mild symptoms. Also dealing with the people who may have been in close contact with them. And we've just been evolving. And you know, our fundamental thing is we're working closely with a variety of government officials, including directly with the CDC. We've had the opportunity to interact with the White House coronavirus task force and a number of medical experts who've really helped guide us. And you have to be flexible because they're learning about this every day as well. And so, you know, our sort of we're used to rules and procedures and kind of black and white, and we've had to learn that the last few weeks. But it seems that we found a pretty good place with it. And we have had some players that have recovered from COVID-19 and are back to work, basically following the CDC guidelines. And we've done a lot of different things to just reinforce the basic safety program. And so yeah, it's been an evolution. You know, we've even little things. With the nuances in the places that we go, you know, there's been different regulations as we've gone to Texas, then South Carolina, and then Hartford, Connecticut, Detroit, Michigan, and now Ohio the last 2 weeks. And I think the players have done a really good job adapting. They've embraced face coverings. They've embraced really taking a safer at home mentality. And I think everybody wants nothing more than to keep this thing going and be able to show golf as a fun sport to watch, and we help everybody on this call with their own businesses.
So Tyler, it's great to hear that the players have taken, to everything that's happening, which is wonderful. I think it was Colonial, I'm not sure, but there was the microphone that was set up, and the players would make comments as they walked by. I thought that was just outstanding to hear it from them. And now, as we've had mics with some of the players on the practice rounds, that we're getting, hearing things and experiencing things that we otherwise would not. So that would certainly seem to be a number of positives that have come from this.
Yeah, agreed. We've tried, and we're going to keep trying to really expand some of the things we've done. So you mentioned I think we called it the course cam, a kind of a confessional booth, if you will, for lack of a better way of describing it. We've really integrated drone coverage. There's some regulatory issues with that normally with spectators out here that we don't have to worry about. So we've had a lot of fun. I don't know if you've noticed a lot of great aerials and shots that you wouldn't traditionally have at some of our golf courses. And we're starting to do some really fun things. It looks like on Wednesdays, we're going to try to do a special kind of charity challenge match. We did that a couple times now. If you got to see that on the Golf Channel or one of our online platforms, that's been a lot of fun, where we've had 4 players out there and kind of just a fun match, all for charity, and microphones and everything. And we've got some other things planned, because it's you got to look at this like I'm sure everyone on the phone is in their own courses. You got to look at it as an opportunity, and it's an opportunity to innovate and think of new things. And we now that we've kind of got our basic stride going here, we're having a lot of fun thinking about future stuff like that.
Terrific. Tyler, let's see. Caitlin, any questions for Tyler?
We do not have any.
Okay. So Tyler, thank you. I know that you do have a little bit of a time constraint. You need to get back out there. So again, for everything that we've done as organizations, the partnership in finding ways to make this work, and the tremendous success that the tour has been having, and your accessibility in a situation like this morning. Can't thank you enough, and we'll look forward to perhaps seeing you here in a week or two at the Barracuda. But continued success, Tyler, and thank you from the golf professionals and partners and allied associations here in the state of California and Nevada.
Thank you. And I just want to say again how important it is to have this relationship with PGA members everywhere we go, the PGA sections that help us run qualifying, and just in general, it's just a great group, and we're here to support. So anyone on this line, please come join us at a tour event in the future when we get fans back. In the meantime, reach out to me or any of our team. And again, it's a great opportunity to be here with you, and I wish everyone the best of luck in their own businesses. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Tyler.
Thanks, Tyler.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, next up, I'd like to bring in our colleague and friend, Kenny Sims, MBA and PGA. And for the last 3 decades, Kenny continues to be among the most visible advocates for development and cultural change in the golf industry, currently serving as the Vice President of Golf Operations for the Tampa Sports Authority. Kenny's always seeking ways to be in front of trends and initiatives for the North Florida PGA and on the national level as well. In 2018, President Whaley reappointed Kenny to the PGA of America Membership Committee. In addition to serving on the membership committee, Kenny has served as a diversity and inclusion chair of the North Florida PGA section, where he was responsible for regularly identifying leaders, providing education, and tracking the progress of those. And Kenny represents the industry by serving on the World Golf Foundation. We are a Golf Diversity Task Force, whose mission is to promote and increase diversity and inclusion across the game and business of golf. Kenny is the lead for PGA Hope Tampa, helping our Patriots everywhere, of course. And since 1991, Kenny's been a charter board member of the First Tee of Tampa Bay, and also a board member of No Strings Attached, a nonprofit designed to supply essential services and clothing to the homeless population of Tampa. In 2019, Kenny was inducted into the African American Golfers Hall of Fame, honors bestowed annually in West Palm Beach and sponsored by the Inner City Youth Golfers, Inc. The purpose of the African American Golfers Hall of Fame is to celebrate and honor the history and achievements of African Americans in the great game of golf. In 92 and 2019, Kenny's been twice awarded Chapter Golf Professional of the Year, our highest honor at any level for sure, also having served as chapter president. Kenny earned his MBA at the University of South Florida and completed his business administration undergraduate studies at Fayetteville State University in Northern California. Kenny resides in Tampa with his two children, Kevin and Leslie. And I'll tell you what, I met Kenny about 4 years ago at the PGA show, and that's we were able to develop a relationship, which I'm grateful for. And that's our check-in spot annually at the PGA show. So Kenny, thank you so much. You know, with everything that you're involved in, we really appreciate you being able to take the time to join us this morning, and particularly on the forum. I think it was about 2 weeks ago, yesterday, I believe, with other PGA professionals and Seth and Susie. So Kenny, we'd love to hear from you about your experiences and how we can continue the diversity and inclusion ball rolling.
Thank you, Lynn. I really appreciate the introduction. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak to this very special group of PGA members and golf professionals across the state. And Lynn, the Fayetteville State's in North Carolina, not Northern California. I know you guys use NC differently than how we do over here on the East Coast. But many of you received your most recent issue of PGA Magazine, and there was an 8-page special written about the PGA of America's efforts to improve social inequalities and racism in the association and in the golf industry. And the article was kind of outlined everything that has been done prior to the incident that occurred with George Floyd back in May. It was something that happened that pulled on the heartstrings of all Americans. And as a result of what happened, Seth and Susie sent out a very heartfelt letter to headquarters staff and to some of the membership. And in that letter, they asked for advice and guidance, and asked the Black PGA member to step up and to provide some actionable items and some guidance on what we can do next to help improve the social inequalities in the association and in the golf industry. And back on July 2nd, we had a forum where Susie and Seth met with myself and 6 other Black PGA members from across the country. And we kind of walked through a couple of things, a couple of facts in history, and we also talked about some of the problems that exist today, whether they be, socio-economic problems, or whether it just be, some of the other problems that the country is facing and has been facing for a long time. It was a very important dialogue that we had. Susie and Seth gave all of us a transparent opportunity to express how we feel. But we know that, a 2-hour phone call isn't going to solve all of the problems. And as a group of panelists, we all decided that we needed to put together a broader plan. Like, exactly how are we going to, tackle this huge problem that we're all facing, either directly or indirectly. So we all decided that we would put together an organizational plan, which will include dividing the country up into 7 different regional areas, and have a regional representative representing each part of the country. So Northern and Southern California and Nevada are going to be represented by Kendall Murphy, who is PGA member that's employed at the PGM program at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. So if anyone on this chat would like to provide some input, Kendall would be your resource. So once we decided that we were going to divide the country up into 7 regions, we decided that next thing that we're going to do is host 7 different planning sessions. And all of those planning sessions will be designed to give every Black member an opportunity to voice their opinion and to provide their input and to be part of the process, most importantly. Trying to stay within the theme of making this entire exercise a member-driven conversation. You can plainly see in the magazine that, over the past 5 years that the association has had several initiatives in place. Sandy Cross, who at HQ, and her staff have put together a tremendous program, and she and her staff need to be commended. They've been doing a phenomenal job. But everything that she's been doing so far has been staff driven. This is the first time that I can remember that the dialogue has now been shifted to become a members driven dialogue. And thanks to the opportunity that Seth and Susie have provided for us, now we have the chance as members to tell everyone how we feel. And they've been gracious enough to listen to some really, really difficult dialogue from quite a few people. And they've taken it graciously, and they've taken everything that's been said and willing to put those comments into action. And that's the biggest problem that a lot of us kind of taken away from what's happened. I've been a PGA member since 1998. I first became an associate in 1987, and in my first year of becoming an associate, I was actually denied access at a PGA event. And through all that time, I've always taken the approach of, let me try to lead, let me try to become the voice of change. And that's one of the reasons why Lynn and I have struck up a relationship, was because in his amazing way of leadership, he wanted to listen to what I had to say. And that, to me, is the change in what's been happening inside the association over the past 2 months, as compared to the last 22 years that I've been a PGA member, is that, now ears are open, people are listening, and there's not so much talking rather than listening. I gotta tell you, I've had several opportunities to sit with executive leadership on the highest level of this association for a very long time, and explain some of the frustrations that that the Black PGA member has been facing. And it all sounds good when we have the meeting, and then things just kind of fade away, and instead of it being a movement of change, it just turns out to be just a moment in time. And Susie and Seth have definitely taken this opportunity to lead us in the right direction. I've had a very strong relationship with Jim Richardson and John Linder, and even though we haven't had direct conversations, hopefully both of those two gentlemen will continue on after Susie term as president ends in the fall. But it's an amazing time for us. The small group of Black PGA members. I'm not sure if everyone is aware of it, but as of today, as we speak on this call, out of the 29,000 PGA members, there are only 165 Black PGA members and associates, and that includes PGM students. And once you take out the PGM students and the A3s and the inactives, we're talking, around 100 Black PGA members nationwide, and only 8 of those 100 are actually women. So, which is kind of a shame. That an association, the biggest sports association in the country, can't seem to put its arms around what we need to do to encourage more people of color to become PGA members. There's definitely a lot of people that are already in the industry, but why is it that they're choosing not to become PGA members? Why are they choosing not to become part of the golf industry? I mean, there really aren't very many opportunities for us, in the golf industry. In fact, of the entire golf industry, there's only one executive. I mean, that's every manufacturer, every allied association. Only one Black person is in an executive leadership position of all of everything, the entire association, and that's general counsel at the PGA Tour, Lynn Brown. So there's a lot of room for improvement, but that also means that there's a lot of opportunities, and there's also a lot of hard work that needs to be done. And I'm just one of many that are willing to take on this role and try to see what we can do to help the golf industry kind of battle some of these things in the same way that NASCAR has faced its problems head on. And I'm just here as the spokesperson for a lot of people that have really taken on this much needed cause. So if there's anyone on this call that would like to be part of the process to help us kind of change some of these things, feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on your directory. You can Google me. I guarantee you my name's out there somewhere. But I also wanted to again thank Lynn. Thank you for giving me a platform so that I can kind of give everyone on in your part of the world of just exactly what we're doing, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
So Kenny, thank you, and thank you for everything that you've done over the years, and certainly the forum 2 weeks ago. And yes, there were certainly uncomfortable moments, but there needed to be. And from that, the organizational plan has come up. And can you tell us a little bit more about the plan? What are the are the components, and certainly we're grateful to have Kendall, pretty close at UNLV, as you mentioned, in the PGM program at UNLV. The types of, within the plan, and what are the 20,000-foot headings, if you will, to educate and bring the industry along. Not only perhaps there's some alteration in some of the practices that we're doing now, but as you just mentioned, inclusion and recruiting more people of color into not only the PGA, but certainly in the golf industry as a whole.
Well, the plan right now is just organizational, because what we plan on doing is hosting a series of planning sessions throughout the country where we will provide every Black member an opportunity to give input. So we know that a lot of people have a lot of great ideas, and what we want to do is we just want to formalize the process and make sure that we go through a very thorough planning process of making sure that we do an environmental scan, determine what our strengths and weaknesses are, determine what our performance measures will become, and who's going to actually execute the plan. So we don't want to create something that just turns into a document that sits on a shelf. We want it to be a living and a breathing document that we can all agree to and ultimately help turn things around. Again, no disrespect to the work that has been done by Sandy and her department. They've been doing a phenomenal job, and they have taken on a huge amount of responsibility when it comes to employment, education, community outreach, and supplier diversity. But again, the plan that they've executed and put in place is a staff-driven exercise. Well, now we need to kind of make sure that what the members are saying are included in that plan. So that's why we've taken this approach of giving everyone a chance to speak their mind. And we hope to have these planning sessions in place and done during the month of August. So we've already started working on the schedule. We've already broken up the country into 7 different regions. We've already identified regional directors. We're trying to make the process more formal. So we know that one of the most important things that needs to happen throughout this entire exercise is there has to be some type of legislative change. That's the only way that the Black PGA member will be protected. And it's not just a conversation today, that what we do today will live well beyond my life, Lynn, Kendall, Seth, and Susie. We know that. What that legislative change is going to look like is still to be determined, and it still is going to have to take a lot of extra dialogue from not only members, the Black PGA member, but it's also going to have to include some conversation with board members and across the board. But the only way that we can, in fact, make significant change is by legislating it. Because to be honest with you, Lynn, when you ask the non-diverse majority if there's a reason or a need for change, they're going to say no. It's just a fact. So as a group of individuals, we are going to have to come together and decide what change needs to happen and how do we make sure that change is not just a snapshot in time, but something that lives on forever.
Hey, Kenny, this is Tom.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Addis.
Question for you. And this could be a long, drawn-out response, but I know we don't want to do that right now. But I commend you on the planning sessions or whatever strategy might come out of those sessions. This may be a true two-pronged question. Do you think, or do you believe that coming out of these sessions, that there will be more local community initiatives. And then the second prong would be, how do you feel the sections, the PGA sections, the local communities as the PGA sections should be and need to be involved and engaged?
Well, first of all, one of the problems that the golf industry has faced for over 100 years now is not connecting with the community at all. There are countless amounts of community-based golf programs that exist throughout this country that many people have no idea of what they're doing and how they're doing it. Some of them are as many as 100 years old, Mr. Addis. And the problem that they've had is that they have not been able to connect with the rest of the golf industry. I can name a couple of the Wake Robins group is a women's golf association in Washington, D.C. that's over 100 years old. The Desert Mashie Golf Association was the genesis of the Bill Dickey Scholarship Fund, which was a huge driver for producing Black golf talent in this country.
Agree.
So there are so many more community-based organizations that are out there that that need to know that they're being recognized, and that's part of what We Are Golf Diversity Task Force has been assigned to do, is to become a linking agent between these agencies and the rest of the golf industry. But the PGA of America has to take a stronger role in that regard. In regards to sections, Mr. Addis, I was once asked to apply for a job as the executive director of the Dixie section, which has since changed its name.
Yes.
And the president of the section, before I got to the interview process, actually picked up the telephone and told me that there were quite a few golf courses in his section that I would not be able to attend if I were to get the job.
Wow.
So the answer to your question is, do the sections need to be involved? Absolutely. Is it going to be an easy lift or a tap in? No, it's not. This is going to be a very uncomfortable and difficult conversation for a lot of people, but it's a conversation that needs to be had. And I kind of think about it in the terms that, the way NASCAR has had to address, the Confederate flag, and the way Richard Petty stood up in front of millions of supporters and followers and say, enough is enough.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate the comments on needing to connect and through the entire industry, and other organizations needing to be recognized. And we in Southern California will certainly pledge to that and helping everyone move in that direction. So thank you for that comment. And if you don't mind, I'll contact you later. So thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm always welcome to talk to you. Always.
Kenny, thank you. And through Sandy, we have, reached out to Rise. I've made contact with Diana and David at Rise, and we look forward to our continuing education, Kenny, as we walk down this road together on such an important topic. So, it's great to see you, Kenny. It's great to see you. I can hear the optimism in your voice, and the fact that we do have commitment throughout the country right now, and for everything that you've done, Kenny, in your career. Thank you for making us better professionals and better colleagues. Caitlin, any questions for Kenny?
Yeah, we have a few. The first one was just, can he provide Kendall's email address? But we can get that from you, I'm sure, after. And then the second one was, does Kenny feel that racism impacted his 11-year journey to earning his PGA membership? If so, can you share examples of the bias you experienced?
So I mentioned a little bit about being denied access. So my first year of being an associate was 1987, and my goal at that time was to become the person to reach master professional status faster than anyone else. And within my first year of an associate, I registered to play in a golf tournament. It was a chapter pro at one of the local golf courses. And 2 weeks after I mailed in my application, I received a phone call from the assistant golf professional, and I was told that I was number 8 on the waiting list for a Monday Pro. And he could not provide me with any of the 7 people that were ahead of me on the waiting list. And a week later, one of my coworkers mailed in his check to play in the golf tournament. And he didn't have any problem getting in the golf tournament. So at that time, I had to make a really, really difficult decision. Do I pursue this and pretty much exile myself from becoming a PGA member and everything that I wanted to achieve in golf? I don't think I mentioned the fact that the head golf professional of this golf course happened to be the president of our chapter. So I didn't have an opportunity to even bring the topic up for debate or conversation. And my goals changed immediately. I went from wanting to become the person that earned master professional status the fastest, to taking almost another 10 years to earn PGA membership because of my discontent with what had happened to me. And I can give you a couple of more stories of how things like that have happened to me in the past. I can also tell you stories how I was the first one to play on a golf course, a first Black person to play on a golf course in Louisiana, where, you know, the 6 months prior, there was a high school kid that was denied access to play the golf course in a high school match. So, you know, there's been a lot of negative, but then there's also been, you know, some milestones that have been reached as well. I was elected as an officer in my chapter, and when I came home and told my wife that they had elected me a secretary of my chapter, she asked me, was that a blind vote? And I said, yes. And she said, well, that means that there was no racism there. You were actually the person that they chose. So there's always been some good things that have happened. But the bad things that have happened, they stick with you. And, you know, sometimes, you know, you wake up at night and you think about these things. You know, the time I applied to be a golf coach at one of the local high schools, and the athletic director said to me in our interview, you do realize that, you know, we have a winning tradition. And I asked him to look at my resume, and I told him I've been a winner on every level of amateur, collegiate, and professional golf. And he came back to me 2 weeks later, and he was literally in tears because he couldn't offer me the job, because what he alluded to was that, you know, the administration didn't want to hire me, or just the mere fact that I've got a very well decorated career in golf, and never have I been ever approached by anyone to manage their golf course or facility. Not one management company, not one privately owned golf course, never. The only time that I've been offered a job other than what I have right now is Marty Kavanaugh. He offered me a job as an assistant golf professional at PGA Golf Club when it was due to open. But other than that, I have had 0 opportunities outside of the company that I worked for the past 30-something years.
Okay, we also have one more question. It says, when Kenny says the Black PGA member needs to be protected, can he clarify that?
So we're having this conversation today. We've had similar conversations before. What are we going to do, whether it be policy change, constitutional change, organizational structure change? What are we going to do to make sure that we're not having this conversation again in 10 years?
That was all the questions we had for right now.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Yeah, thank you.
Kenny, thank you for sharing that and giving us the opportunity to be part of that with you. I'm sure that was to some extent probably difficult having to relive that one more time. But yet you stayed with it, and here we are, having this conversation and with your input and guidance. And so, Kenny, what next steps, please? As I've mentioned, we've reached out to Rise, and there's so many things going on. But as you talking to us, colleague to colleague, what would you say is the next step to do that we can implement? Act locally, think globally, but what can we do in our day-to-day to start to change the conversation?
I think everyone on this call should start off by making an environmental scan. Take a look at what your staff looks like. That's number one. I mean, how many women, how many Latinos, how many Black people actually work for you at your golf course? And I don't just mean the back of the house job either, even though those jobs are very important. I mean, how many people, how many minorities are actually in a decision-making or management role at your facility? And if those numbers don't look the way you think they should look, then try to make some change in your hiring practices. Try to make some change in the way you advertise jobs. I find it very difficult to advertise for jobs to attract minority candidates and to make sure that I have a diverse candidate pool. And I'm intentional about it. So I can imagine what the candidate pool is going to look like if you aren't intentional. I've literally would pick up the telephone and call people that I know have the database of minority candidates and say, hey, I've got a job posting I want you to take a look at. And that's the thing that everyone on this call can do right now, is just turn around and look around, while you're at work to see, what can you do to improve that.
Great, thank you, Kenny. So we'll do a couple of things. Obviously, get in touch with Kendall and make his information available. And Kenny, if you don't mind, certainly we'll stay in touch with you. And should we get any more inquiries and such, we'll forward them to you as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm always available for a conversation, or I pride myself on being a good listener. It doesn't seem like it today, but I always feel like the best way for me to help improve this problem that we all face is by listening, and then take a look, maybe even the smallest part of that conversation, and carry it forward to so that others know, how everyone feels.
Yeah. Well, again, Kenny, thank you for your honesty and openness and trust, in trust and being willing to discuss and express, your experiences with us here in California, Nevada, and throughout the country. We've got some work to do, Kenny, no question about that, but the closer we are, the stronger we are as we make it through this next part of the journey. So, Kenny, I hope you can join us. We do have another speaker or two. I hope you're willing and have the time to stay on with us. If not, we totally understand.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Lynn, but I have got so many things going on, and it's 2 o'clock on a Friday in Florida right now, and I've got like 5. The phone's been ringing off the hook.
Right.
So, but I really appreciate everything, and if you need me to come back on, every once in a while to give you updates, I'd be glad to do that.
No question, Kenny, no question. So, okay, 2 o'clock Friday in Florida. Get to it, Kenny. Again, thank you. Can't thank you enough on behalf of the Northern California and Southern California PGA professionals. Thank you for being with us.
All right, thanks.
Kenny.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thanks. And now I'd like to turn it over to our Director of Government Affairs. Again, there's a lot going on, and Craig and Kevin have been down in the trenches with the counties, with the cities, with the legislatures, particularly at a volatile time such as this. I'd like to turn it over to our Director of Government Affairs for the Southern California Golf Association, Craig Kessler. Craig?
Thank you, Len. Thank you, Tom. That's a tough act to follow. Before I get into just a very brief update of where we stand with COVID-19 and some changes in the state orders and what that does mean and does not necessarily mean for the game of golf. I think I've been on every one of these chats from the beginning, and I think everyone knows that because you always announce my title. I'm work for an amateur golf association. I don't work for the sections. And Kevin Fitzgerald and I haven't just been interactive with the professional sections, but with the golf course superintendents, with the owners groups, and so many different groups, and a lot of grassroots groups on the ground that Kenny Sims just alluded to, because we recognized some time ago that in order for the game to be effective at the governmental level, we had to come together. We had to get out of our silos and recognize that the only chance we had to be effective and to put a different face of the game of golf before legislators and policymakers was to do this in unison. And so I'd simply say after the last presentation, Kenny's a PGA professional, and most of the persons listening on this call are PGA professionals, not the guy talking, but most of the persons listening. And I'd simply say the following: what he talked about requires a massive cultural change. And my experience has been, whether it's been a direct experience in the realm of advocacy, and we're by no means all the way home in that regard, nowhere near it, the moments in time that he talked about will only become movements of change at the point at which the golf industry handles what Kenny Sims talked about across all levels. Not just within the PGA of America, but within the USGA, among all of the amateur golf associations across the country, with the national golf course owners, with the golf course superintendents. Our game is, I know it's a hackneyed phrase, maybe we're maybe ahead of everybody else, and most of everybody else in the country, in terms of being much more unified in some things, but not in all things. So I would say the degree to which we have achieved a measure of success in advocacy, probably beyond anyone else in the country, it's been because of that spirit of that recognition that we have to stand together and that we would not be able to affect real change until such time as we come together. And thank you for indulging me the personal comment coming on that last very powerful, very compelling presentation. That change won't happen within one organization, and it will be a long, hard slog, even if all the organizations come together. And before I get into that brief update, let me say that if you didn't find Kenny Sims' story painful, it's because you weren't listening. Painful, but very, very effective, I think, and extremely important. So let's move on. everybody knows that late last week, Governor Newsom clamped down on a lot of things within the state. The SCGA was very careful within about 30 minutes after his press conference to put out a general release that because we didn't want the rumor mill to fly and everyone feel as if we were going back to the early days in mid-March and maybe through the first week of April in which everything was shut down in a panic. So we pointed out that the governor spoke at length in terms of the literal lifeline that outdoor recreation is. And as Tom Addis pointed out at the beginning of this meeting, that it reported in 11 newspapers in Southern California today is that encouraging news from CIF that yes, most sports are going to be canceled, but certainly golf, tennis, and probably a variety of cross country can and should be going forward. And again, that's testimony to the almost unique amenability of golf or unique suitability to COVID-19. I know it's a strange thing to say, but it happens to be true. So as we focus on where we may be heading, and of course everyone is just not is probably a combination of frightened and appalled at the way in which in this first wave of the pandemic we're having a second surge. Where will that end? Will the steps that we've taken in the last week bring down that curve sufficiently that we can, a few weeks from now, get back to thinking about going the other direction and reopening? Or are we sort of in this position permanently? Or worst case scenario, will panic set in again and even outdoor activities be eliminated? Keep in mind, the PGA America is working probably every day with the city and county of San Francisco to pull off a major championship. As Len alluded at the beginning, the Southern Cal Golf Association, in conjunction with the Northern Cal Golf Association, is working every day with the city of San Diego. We're conducting the California Amateur starting July 27th at probably the most visible municipal golf course in the United States. So there's incredible visibility. So whether it's the CIF, whether it's these rather large championships that are being conducted very tellingly, not just at public golf courses, but public golf courses owned by the very public entities that are responsible for issuing all the health orders, I think is very powerful testimony that we should not panic and we should not become susceptible to rumors unless and until things become really bad. Golf, outdoor recreational golf in some form will continue forward. So yes, there are some new restrictions, and I know I've been expressing optimism in the last 2 weeks that even that sort of last holdout, not holdout in terms of recreational golf, but in terms of what I would call a full measure of recreational golf, the county of Los Angeles, which because it is the largest county in the state has to move very carefully. I'm still fairly confident that they too, even with the restrictions, even with the new atmosphere, even with the new fears about a second wave of a second surge of a first wave, that they will institute those relaxations maybe today, if not today, perhaps next week. And that involves group lessons, group play, walk-up play, and various other things that are become routine in the other 9 Southern California counties. I'm not as conversant with the details in every Northern California county. And let me say, before I move on to some things on the national level, that it's not the right phrase. I wouldn't call them unintended consequences because no one intended COVID-19. But one of the surprising results, I think, of COVID-19 in recreational golf, and it's at 2 levels. We ran this, is that I think everyone's aware that play is way up ever since golf was reinstituted, and it began to come back on board, except in Sacramento and San Luis Obispo counties where it never went away, roughly around April 20th, and it was fully back on board, at least in all of Southern California's 10 counties. The last date was May 8th, and we know that people flooded back to the golf courses and play was way up, even though there were severe restrictions on holing out, restrictions on tee intervals, restrictions on carts. In some cases, some counties didn't go to even riding in single rider carts for a period of weeks thereafter. And even where there are single rider carts, many of the very large municipal systems, which have been packed with play, run out of carts. You can't be guaranteed. Despite all of those things, play is up phenomenally, which should gladden our hearts that under bad circumstances, and I think we're beyond the honeymoon period in that regard, that under these difficult circumstances, our game is popular. And again, as I've said many, many times, it should remind us, instead of focusing on all the problems with the game, maybe we should focus on all those things which have made it enduringly attractive for 500 years. And there's one other feature for those who are passionate about the municipal realm in particular. There are many of us, and I'm one of those persons, who have been preaching the Bill Yates sermon on the fact that you could actually increase play at municipal systems and increase revenues as a result if you simply went a little easier on the tee interval. Instead of trying to pack persons in and then fall behind on tee sheets and then have many hours of open periods of open tee sheets, not because persons didn't want to play at 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, and at this time of year, 3 o'clock. It's because they didn't want to play in 5.5 to 6 hours at those times. Well, and every time an experiment was run in extending the tee interval, it was always a pilot project in one place. And the golfing public just didn't believe it would bring results, so they always tended to fail. Well, we were forced by COVID-19 to run this grand experiment that everyone was reluctant to run, because initially it was 12-minute tee intervals, in some places it was as much as 15, and now it's devolved back to 10 as the minimum. And lo and behold, play numbers have never been better at municipal systems in Southern California, and revenue numbers are actually better than this time last year, even though there are things about those revenue lines which are still not available because we're not all the components that form the revenue stream at a public golf facility are back in play. So as we move forward, let's not forget those two things. If and when we will get back to normal at some point, but it might be a new normal, and it may be a while before we get there. But let's not lose sight of the fact that we've discovered a couple of good things coming out of this that we ought to hang on to moving into the future, and that will serve us extremely well. In terms of, and I'll close with this because we're a little short of time. In terms of what may be going on in Washington, D.C., about a fourth, I think it's the fourth round of whether you want to call it stimulus legislation or relief legislation. When both houses of Congress go back into session next week, it appears that they are headed with some White House support to another stimulus bill or another relief bill. In there will probably be an extension beyond July 31st of unemployment insurance. It may not be quite as beneficent as the $600 model. There's been some issues with that, and the Republican Party in particular seems to want some changes and not just move it forward. And it strikes me that we know now that the Senate will not, the leader of the Senate will not bring a bill to the floor that doesn't have some form of liability relief related to COVID-19 on a temporary basis, with a form of federal preemption involved, quasi-preemption, for those who understand what that means, unless it has that feature in it. And I don't think the House will go forward, will be able to consider a bill that would come out of the Senate to go to conference, unless it has some measure, large measure of relief for the nation's states and counties. For those, again, focusing back on municipal golf, which is 22% of the golf stock in California and roughly 40% of the play, and the largest owners of golf courses, that's how in California are a couple of governments, they're not private parties, that those budgets have just been totally blown by COVID-19. So that's an important, that element in the relief bill may not strike some on this call as important to the golf industry, not as important as direct relief under PPP or EIDL, but I assure you that it is. That money has a way of filtering down. Money is fungible and taking some relief off of golf systems. So we'll be watching that carefully. My hope I can tell you this, the state of California has pushed very hard for the We Are Golf Coalition to include that on its list of things that indicates the golf industry is in favor of as part of the package and will be part of some grand compromises, in addition to some of the other forms of relief that are direct to those who work in the business and to some of the clubs and facilities. And I won't go into the details of that. And I'm hopeful that the nation's largest golf market and largest state has enough influence at the national level to be listened to very carefully on that. So with that sort of very quick and rat-a-tat update, I just want to close, and I'll answer any questions if there are any, on don't panic. You're going to read a lot of headlines. You're going to hear a lot of stories about, well, for example, Mayor Eric Garcetti in Los Angeles talking about we're very close from moving to orange to red. I think just keep in mind that while no one knows what the future holds with respect to COVID-19, those things we have learned about COVID-19 actually put the game of golf in a stronger position than we were in 10 or 12 weeks ago, because it turns out that particularly outdoors is considerably safer than indoors, no matter what the activity. And that includes touch control. And so our form of the game is the quintessential socially distant outdoor activity. So I think we should continue to feel lucky. There's nothing virtuous. There's nothing that we did to be put in this position. But we should make sure that at all levels, two things, that we continue to project a unified message in that regard, and that we also recognize that the eyes of the world are upon us, and they'll be increasingly upon us as some other things may close down. We're part of that which is left open. So there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on us. There's going to be a lot of scrutiny at the PGA championships and maybe the California State Amateur and some of these other things moving forward. So always keep in mind as you go out and pursue your activities at your club, at your facility, no matter what type it is, that how we perform and how individual golfers continue to perform will go the longest way towards determining whether we can continue to offer a form of recreational golf and stay in some measure of business, almost no matter what happens with COVID-19. Because it's clear that we're sort of in a position that I don't think we're going to get out of in terms of certain indoor activities for a long time coming. And that may give us some competitive advantages because there's some things that golf competes with that it won't be competing with. And that's an element probably of our incredible spike in play, but I don't think it's the entire element. But we won't know what role that played until we get to the other side of it and we can assess the information. So with that, again, let's all stay together across all organizations and all disciplines, and let's get out of our silos and get in and recognize that golf is golf is golf and golf is one. Let's continue to put on a good show for the world. So thanks, Lynn. Thanks, Tom. Thanks to the two sections for the opportunity to address you again. And I'll answer any questions if indeed there are any.
Thank you, Craig. So at the time, we're clear on the questions, but you're right. Let's all stay calm, and thank you for your continued advocacy through the California Alliance for Golf, of course, which brings all the industries together. And certainly, you've been with us every week on our chat. So we really appreciate the insight from your particular level, which is inside the inside. So we've got a few more minutes. We'd like to start to wrap up. And to do that, I'd like to take it back to our section presidents and start with Northern California PGA Section President Didi Moriarty after such a great session today. Didi?
No, Len, you're absolutely right. This was a great session. Really appreciated all the speakers. Kenny, you're probably not on the line, but I'd really love to talk to you sometime in the near future. And just thanks for everybody to be on, and just be safe, everybody. We've got to be more vigilant. As my mom always said, when the times get tough, just get tougher. So good to continue these chats, and thanks all very much.
Thank you, Dee Dee. And Southern California PGA President, Tony Latendre. Tony?
Yes, thank you, everybody. And Dee Dee, I couldn't agree with you more. Very powerful messaging today from all angles. And just remember that it's bigger than us, but collectively, I think we can all come together and make the whole world a better place through golf. So please do your part, do what you can locally. And if all of us do what we can locally, it'll spread like wildfire.
Thank you, Tony. And Tom?
Yeah, thanks, Len, and thanks, everybody. This was really, really a wonderful session, and appreciate having the opportunity to be included. I think with Kenny in particular today, and with social outreach and the things that we have to and should attain, is it possible? Absolutely. And I think we all will work in that regard, and it'll be interesting and to see what comes out of the sessions that the PGA and Kenny is working on and planning, and what input they have. It'll be very exciting, I believe. And thanks to Tyler, Craig, and Kevin once again, and the SCGA's leadership in all these matters is extraordinary. And Craig, we appreciate that, and Kevin Heaney and Kevin Fitzgerald, thanks so much. So as usual, Caitlin and Bryce and Tony and Dee Dee and everyone responsible for this, thanks again. Next week we have another good one. We have right now we have the CEO of the National Golf Foundation, Joe Beditz, and it's possible that President Whaley will join us as well. Not for sure, but it's possible. So again, Len, thanks, and we appreciate everybody.
Well, thank you, Tom, and to everyone that's been on the call. Thank you again for all that you are and all that you're doing for us as an industry as we work through the next stage. And as has been said to the great speakers today, Tyler Dennis taking his time, and certainly Kenny taking his time and trusting us with his story, and yet at the same time alerting us that there's much work to be done, and that we are more than grateful and willing to be part of that, and we will. So everyone have a wonderful weekend. As Tom mentioned, we are getting ready again for next week. So please be safe. Continue to observe the protocols, certainly at the facilities, but personally as well. And we'll continue to do the right thing as an industry. And good luck, everyone, and enjoy the weekend.
Thanks.